Welcome to OLC 40, Term 2A. This is Class 26. We're going to be working on Assignment 37 and also working on adverbial clauses. And today is Wednesday, March 27th, and I'm Jillian Percy. Over here is our contact information. Whenever you hand in work, always send it to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. That way the secretary can log that you submitted it, and if there is ever another teacher, they could find it again. Please include your full name, the course name, assignment name, and number. If the assignment asks for both a rough and a good draft, please label them and include them both in the same email because sometimes they have different marking schemes. Oh dear. Okay, I somehow gotten signed out. I apologize. Give me a second and I will sign back in. So in one of my other courses, I have switched to using PowerPoint because of this, but in PowerPoint, the links don't work as well. And I like being able to use the links. Okay, here we are. Crazy Google. Okay. If you have a question about an assignment, send an email to me at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. I also have previous recordings on YouTube at the same kind of address, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. Keep in mind that's got 3 terms of recordings. So if you need to go back a few assignments, it's there. If you need to go forward a few assignments, that's there as well. There are a few spots where you need to take a picture of an assignment. If you do that, please send it as an attachment to your email rather than sending it directly as the email. It's kind of hard to print off when it goes into the body, and it doesn't always show up properly on the computer. Okay. So today we are going to, oh, wait. I'm sorry, I changed this. We were doing conditional sentences, but because at the last minute we didn't quite finish off adverbial clauses yesterday, I moved conditional sentences somewhere else. So now we're doing clauses. Understand different types of resumes, understand how to create a good resume, explore verbs that can describe our skills and abilities, create a rough draft of a resume with the help of an organizer, and then create a rough draft of a resume with a computer software program such as Google Docs or Canva. Okay, so we started this yesterday. We got kind of stuck because I had not 100% finished it. Adverb clauses, like any other clause, must have both a subject and a verb. They will modify or describe a verb, another adverb, or an adjective, just the same way that an adverb does. Adverb clauses will also answer the exact same questions an adverb does. Things like how, why, where, when, to what extent, or with what conditions. Adverb clauses will start with a subordinating conjunction. They are a type of dependent clause and they cannot stand alone as a sentence. Just a quick reminder of some of our common subordinating conjunctions. Words, these are words and phrases. So after, although, as far as soon as if, as though, because, before, even if, even though, how, if only, in as much as, in case that, in order that, insofar as, in that, just as, lest, no matter how, now that, once, only if, provided that, rather than, since, so that, supposing that, than, that, though, till, unless, until, when, whenever, where, wherever, whether, while, and why. I'm sure there are some more, but those are the most common ones I'm seeing over and over again. Okay. So some examples of adverbial clauses. They can answer what type of how something was done, the manner it was done. He ran as fast as he could. As fast as he could is an adverb clause describing how he ran. It can answer where, the place. I bring my phone wherever I go. Wherever I go is the adverb clause. Purpose, why something happens. Vera bought Tom this gift because she thought he would like it. When, time, after they set up the tent, they built a fire. Condition. Conditions are like something will happen, but only if something else happens. David will be here at 2 o'clock if he gets the next train. Comparison, Patrick can speak French as well as I can. And then a concession or a contrast, although it's raining, it's still warm outside. So all the parts that are dark, those are adverb clauses. Adverb clauses can come at the front or at the end of sentences. If an adverb clause comes at the front of the sentence, it's followed by a comma before the rest of the sentence. Even though he was broke, comma, Dan was determined to go out that weekend. After I get finished at work, comma, I am planning to go fishing with my friends. Now, sometimes to people, these look like a run-on sentence, but because there's the coordinate conjunction right there in front, I'm going to kind of underline it so you see it. That is helping to join the two sentences together, even though it's not in the middle. It's at a funny spot, but it's still recognized as being a conjunction, and therefore it's a legitimate way to join the two parts of the sentence. When the adverb clause comes at the end of the sentence, it doesn't need a comma. I told my mom to come over whenever she wanted to on Sunday. So that's answering when, basically. How do you decide whether to put the adverb clause at the front or the back? Well, sometimes the adverb clause is put in the front if the writer wants to emphasize that part of the sentence. For example, provided that you get your homework done, I will take you shopping tonight. So that whole bit is kind of like a condition, right? Unless my boss lets me have the day off, I won't be able to go on vacation. That's another conditional one. Other times, the adverbial clause just seems to fit more naturally at the end of the sentence. We can set up the tent wherever we want to at the campsite. I have to cook dinner after work, no matter how tired I feel. So it makes more sense there. So just go with what sounds natural to you. There's no rules about this one. Okay. This was a little type of kind of a mini quiz here. See if I can pull it up. Okay. Oh, I'm fine with that. An independent clause has a subject, verb, and can stand alone as a coherent sentence, expresses a complete thought, both A and B. It is definitely both A and B. It has to do both. Hopefully I'm right in this one. Okay. Because a subordinate clause depends on the rest of the sentence to express a complete thought, it is called a prepositional clause, a dependent clause, or a verbal clause. The word depend is kind of your clue. It's a dependent clause. Choose the true statement. A subordinate clause standing alone is an error called a sentence fragment. Yeah, that's true. A subordinate clause always stands alone as an independent sentence. No, that's never true. A subordinate clause must be placed by another subordinate clause. No, it has to be with a main clause. Okay. Which one is an example of a sentence fragment? Because the young elephant named Babanu was new to the zoo, she was fed first. Because the elephant named Babanu was new to the zoo and was fed first. The elephant named Babanu was new to the zoo, so she was fed first. So this and this are the right combination of a dependent clause plus a main clause. This one, there's a whole section missing. Okay, so that one is going to be your sentence fragment. Which example shows two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction? She weeded the garden before she swept out the garage. Before is a subordinate conjunction, not a coordinating one. She weeded the garden and swept out the garage. This is joining the two phrases, weeded the garden and swept out the garage, but it's not two complete sentences. She weeded the garden and she swept out the garage. These are both complete sentences or two independent clauses. That one works. Which example shows a noun clause acting as a noun in a complete sentence? Okay. What her brother needs is someone to tutor him in geometry. That's a pretty good possibility. Her brother needs someone to tutor him in geometry? No. She said her brother needs someone to tutor him in geometry. No. The phrase what her brother needs is acting as the noun clause. Which example is correct? The attendance award went to whomever had perfect attendance all year. The attendance award went to whoever had perfect attendance all year. Ooh, that's a tricky one. Whomever, we use whom when we're talking about the subject. Whoever would only go like at the beginning if it was the subject. Whomever is when it's the object. So the correct one is going to be whomever. That's a tricky one. In which sentence is the subordinate clause underlined? Although he had climbed other mountains, he was not experienced enough for this expedition. They didn't underline any of these. I don't quite know what they're talking about. Okay. Although he had climbed other mountains, he was not experienced enough for this expedition. That's weird. They just have all the same. I'm going to try and skip it and see if you'll let me skip it. All right. Unless I'm missing something, they're all the same. In which sentence is the independent clause underlined? And again, they didn't underline any of them. All right, I'll just do that and see if that works. All right. So this is the danger of online sources. I got 7 wrong. 8 was their mistake. I'm not sure what 7 was. I don't remember. 9 was apparently right, even though I was just randomly guessing. Okay, that was just a quick little review of what we've been doing on clauses. Okay, so we're getting near the end of our unit 3. This is some stuff that was about career planning. For some reason, they put it after the resume in our unit, whereas to me, it seemed like it was a little more useful while you were doing your resume, so I'm kind of including it here. Since you're now completing this grade 12 English course, the assumption is that you will most likely be graduating from high school soon. You have perhaps been thinking about what you will do once you receive your OSSD. You may choose to further your education by attending college or university or some other sort of post-secondary program away from home. You may be able to take some post-secondary courses while still living at home, for example, through Contact North. You may choose to stay in your home community and continue with what you've been doing, working at a current job, raising a family. You may want to look for a suitable job at home. The choice is yours to make, and there's a whole lot out there to choose from. What you decide to do will depend on your interests, needs, and skills. A career is a term used to cover related types of work. Examples of careers are things like hospitality, aviation, education. An occupation or a job refers to something more specific. Examples of occupations are front desk clerk, pilot, elementary teacher. Okay. I included this, however, I think this is a somewhat outdated concept map in terms of the print and the video area, okay? The experienced computers and people are sort of okay. One of the best sources for information is from people already working in a professional, people who are training for the profession, as well as people at the schools who are educating those to start the profession. So for example, if you want to understand nursing better, try talking to a nurse or to a nursing student. You could look up a nearby nursing program and see what they list as courses or what they suggest nurses need to know. Another good way would be like doing some volunteer work at the hospital so you can get some experience doing similar type things to nursing, although it wouldn't be exactly nursing. Okay, career planning information. Sources of information useful for career planning and the job search process include a variety of internet sites and certain print resources which may be found at your learning center or school. Band office and other possible locations around your community. Internet websites devoted to these topics are worth checking out, and working people around your community can be a valuable source of information. Now, sadly, this whole little section here that used to be true is no longer true. The Sue Hudson Employment Services, I don't think it's still there. Certainly their website is not working anymore, which is a real shame because it was a great place to look for jobs. The other thing was these two websites that they linked, these are no longer active websites, unfortunately. The one called Job Bank has an alternate link now. I'm just going to kind of take you there sort of quickly. It looks really boring here, but if you go down, oh, wait, where is it? Oh, okay. Sorry, something I was looking for seems to have gone. This would be some more information about graduating high school. Where is the job bank? Hang on a second. Nope. Okay. Uh, hmm. I wonder if another web link has gone since I last taught this, which was not that long ago. All right, I will try and find that later. Creating your own resume is assignment 37. It's worth 30 marks. You get 15 marks for the rough copy and 15 marks for your final copy. Your task with this assignment will be to develop a chronological resume of your own using the template provided on the next page and based on the information provided along with the sample. Note, if you already have a resume done, perhaps from an earlier course or from looking for work, take a close look at it and revise it as necessary, especially if you've not used it for a while and you have something new that you can now add to it, like some new work experience. The template, when completed, will be a rough copy only. You are then to revise and edit this rough copy as needed and produce a final copy on a computer. Remember that your resume is used to show an employer that you are the best person for this job, so it has to be as professional looking as possible and include all your qualifications and positive characteristics. You want to make the greatest impression possible. Okay. Points to keep in mind, your name, address, and that part can be centered at the top of the page, or it can be located at the left-hand margin. Your objective is supposed to be something specific that you're hoping for. This is kind of an old-fashioned one, so I'm doing it because the assignment asks for it. But if you are currently looking for work, I would not put an objective there. When you are listing information in the education and the work experience sections, make sure that you start from your most recent job first and then go backwards in time. This is key for any chronological resume. Also, if you are an older person and have like a lot of jobs, you can arbitrarily stop listing jobs. You don't have to go on forever. You'd want to make sure you included at least 10 to 15 years worth of experience. But especially if you've done a lot of jobs, you don't want to be like having 2 or 3 pages worth of resume stuff. List all the skills you have, for example, leadership or organization, list any 3 interests, and then list 3 references if you can, or otherwise 2. A reference would be a person who knows you fairly well and would say some good things about you if called upon. I would also say people that like high school teachers, somebody who was your boss or supervisor, include the person's name, job title, address, and telephone number. Do not use any family members or relatives as references if possible. The only exception would be, and I know because a lot of people live in very small communities, if your relative, like your favorite auntie, happened to also be your boss, that's fine to use because she has relevant information to say on your ability to do your job. Okay. As an option for references, you can simply put the words available on request. Obviously, in real life, you would want to make sure you had those references, but for the purposes of this exercise, that's fine. So here is a sample resume. This is a very typical resume. You've got their personal information sample up top here, their name, their address, their telephone number, their email. Objective to apply my communication skills in a retail position. Education, presently working towards OSSD. That's 2022, 2021, first aid and CPR training. My only concern with this is I would actually put my education under the work experience, especially if you're applying for a job that you have relevant experience for. Again, for the purposes of this assignment, this is fine. But just if you were going to go on and use it for a real resume, I wouldn't put education right there at the top. Work experience, January to August 2022. Customer service, Northern Store, Pickle Lake. Assisted customers with their shopping needs. Performed related duties as required. February to September 2021, receptionist, Women's Center, Mishkegaming, supported staff, answered telephones, managed computer database. Skills, organization, word processing, leadership. Interests, meeting new people, helping others, reading and cooking. References available on request. Okay. I'm going to say if you have had any experience, this is a very bare bones resume. I would actually add a lot of information to make this more rich and more desirable. Again, if you're a mature student, don't put education up top, put it underneath your work experience. You want that to be the first thing the boss sees. Again, especially if you have relevant work experience to what you're applying for. Okay. Oh, this kind of has moved apparently. So let me just see if I can grab it. Oh, well, maybe I'll just do that. Oh, okay. So this is a rubric for how I would mark the resume. I'm looking at, did they follow the resume formatting? Do they show awareness of the audience, purpose, and tone? Do their word choices show active verbs, consistent tense, and good description? Does the rough copy meet assignment criteria and it's handwritten like it's asked for? The good copy should show evidence of revisions in word choice, grammar, phrasing. The good copy should also have been edited for spelling, punctuation, and capitalization mistakes. Okay, I'm just going to kind of go through section by section. You may have gotten various different types of training in your workplace. This is a good place to record these. You can rename it education and training, or if you want to, you can include a separate section called additional education and training. And this would include any type of certifications or training process that you might have gone through. Things like first aid or lifeguard, heavy machinery certification, suicide prevention, firefighting, Microsoft Excel. If you've done any kind of professional development, that's taught you something specific that you're using, by all means, list it here. Skills section. Okay. I personally am not crazy about a skills section, but they are pretty common on resumes. I would want to make sure that the skills section was very, very specific. So I would not write word processing, which is kind of vague. I would try and write something specific like excellent at using MS Word to create a variety of documents, such as letters, agendas, programs, posters, and business documents. Other possible skills that might have a work-related usage. Second language skills. Lots of jobs are looking for people with more than one language. Skills with a specific computer software program. So if you're applying for a finance clerk, you might want to mention if you know how to use Excel or QuickBooks or one of those kind of programs. Web design skills. Specific skilled trade skills in welding, construction, auto repair, that kind of thing. Performing skills such as dance, public speaking, singing, and musical instruments. I would only do that if it's relevant to the job, but there are some jobs where that would be relevant. Any office specific skills that you have experience doing that might be useful. Filing, organizing, note taking, your keyboarding speed. Also, any business specific skills that might be appropriate to the job you're applying for. Point of sale skills, merchandising, inventory, stocking, sales skills. I would want to make sure that if somebody said, oh, when have you used this skill, that I could name a specific job or volunteer experience that I have used that skill in. You don't want to claim something in the skills section that you've never actually done on job. Interests. I would honestly no longer include this section in a resume. I don't find it useful. It's kind of an old-fashioned thing that used to do, but I don't find it's used very much these days. Um, and it can be a little bit off-putting because sometimes people include things that are off topic and that might even make a employer go, oh, are they interested in that? I don't like that, right? You don't want to give any employer a chance to weed you out. I would only include interests that might connect to the actual job. If you're applying for a job, graphic design, then an interest in anime um, uh, movies is helpful information. If you're applying for a job as a cashier, it's probably not relevant unless maybe you were a cashier at a comic book shop where they sold manga and anime and that kind of stuff, right? So I would keep it geared towards the job still. Okay, work experience section. Typically, you would list 3 to 4 point form sentences stating what you did at the job. I would try to avoid vague language, which says responsible for, which basically says what you should have been doing, but not what you actually did do. Even if the skills seem really obvious, spelling it out for your potential employer is helpful. And always start with the verb. So it's the first thing they see. These are not complete sentences. This is the one time I'm going to tell you, don't worry about the subject. The subject is always I, and that's going to sound repetitious. Just start with the verb and put the verb in the past tense. So if you were applying for a job as a waitress, for example, seated customers, took orders accurately, including substitutions, suggest sold drinks, desserts, and specials, operated point of sale machines, bussed tables, assembled salads, and made drinks when needed. So you would pick 3 or 4 of those, whatever you thought were appropriate for the job you were applying for. And yes, of course, most people who are hiring for this know that's what a waitress does. But when you list it, it shows that you also know those things. So the key then becomes using great verbs. You don't want to use the same verb over and over again. You want to use a variety of verbs that show different skills. So for office work, you might use verbs like filed, organized, alphabetized, recorded, tracked, phoned, monitored, answered, screened, delegated, created, planned. For creative work, depending on what kind of creative work, designed, sketched, planned, drew, painted, illustrated, proposed, sang, performed, acted, auditioned, crafted. Skilled trades, there might be very specific ones. These were kind of more generic ones, things like operated, drove, utilized, carried, followed, assembled, cut, welded, built, constructed, painted, designed. And then leadership skills. This is if you're in like a supervisory position. Managed, organized, delegated, supervised, oversaw, implemented, monitored, interviewed, hired, administered, coordinated, or initiated. There are lots of other verbs out there. It's just kind of to give you some to kind of get a starting point. Okay, there are actually 3 types of resumes, and I want to discuss them all just because I want you to know what your options are. The one we're doing is a chronological resume, but there's also a functional resume and there's also a hybrid resume, and they do have their uses in case you want to do a different kind of resume. So a chronological resume, the work experiences are listed in kind of reverse order, like what was most recent, and then next, and then next. Education is more likely to be placed at the bottom, like they've got it. It's best suited for those who've got lots of work experience. And then you list the skills underneath each job title. So for example, over here, registered nurse, administered medications and treatment to patients, and monitored responses while working with healthcare teams to adjust care plans. Equipped patients with tools and knowledge needed for speedy and sustained recovery. Facilitated therapeutic communication, conflict resolution, and crisis intervention by redirecting negative behaviors and helping patients regain or improve coping abilities to prevent further disability. So again, you can see administered, equipped, facilitated, those really strong verbs. Now, some of the cons of a chronological resume. If you have large periods of unemployment, they're going to stand out. Also, it's kind of assumed that your most relevant experience was also your most recent, but sometimes if you're trying to like get back in the workforce after a lot of years, it might not be. So then it can look kind of funny if, you're applying for nursing, but you took 10 years off to raise your child and now you're trying to get back in and it's like, oh, well, what have you been doing for the last 10 years? It also may not showcase talents or skills that you have that are useful, but that you didn't get them in an actual employment, a workplace kind of place. So here are some other options in those cases. This one is what's called a functional resume. This website, JobScan, shared one. They highly recommend not using functional resumes. And the reason is recruiters don't always like them. However, it kind of works here because this job seeker, Roy Harper, has some very specific skills. He's got all these very specific computer programming languages he knows. He also has relevant training, and he lists some very specific projects that he's used his skills on. Now, his actual work experience is really minimal. You can see he's just been a freelance software developer. So that wouldn't look that great on a chronological resume. However, if this were a student who's just finished up their degree, this might work. So you can see here they've listed the skills they have, software development tools, problem solving and algorithm design. They've got relevant education. Here are some of the projects. This is a very specific kind of functional resume. Again, it works best if there's some holes in your resume or there's very little to your resume and you need to kind of make it look a little better. However, there are some cons. Um, a lot of recruiters hate it though. Two main reasons, because recruiters know that it's being used to conceal information. Okay. As somebody put it, it's easier to BS your way through and make things sound glamorous that maybe weren't so glamorous. And the reason we said to use it is exactly why recruiters get suspicious, because it does cover gaps in their employment. Loading their skills mean like they're exaggerating their skills, and it hides their lack of experience. Um, all of that is easy to do because the main focus of functional resume is on skills rather than career history. Having said that, recruiters have a specific job. Their job is to hire people fast for companies. Actual companies may not mind a functional resume. So keep it in mind. It could be useful if you have some issues where a chronological resume might not work so good. And then there are the kind of combination resume where it's organized both chronologically and by categories. It will also include skills required. It might be a good choice for those who've had some experience, but not a whole lot. And it might also be good for those who have some sort of specific training that an employer might be looking for, such as heavy machinery training. So here's an example. They have relevant skills up top and professional skills up top. It's the first thing you see, but then they do include their work history. This might be a nice compromise if you don't have a lot of work history, but you do have a lot of skills that you want to show off. For our purposes, we're going to do a chronological resume because it's the most common, but because I know people might actually be looking for work, I wanted to make sure that you understood that you've got options. So the resume template in the unit, by the way, it's kind of got a very outdated look to it. If I were going to create a resume today, I would take a bit more time looking at current resumes to try and get a sense of what is considered more typical these days. Having said that, you may see a lot of resumes that are also from the States, and their how they do things and how we do things is a little bit different. The biggest one, do not put your photo on a resume in Canada. Unless you're trying to get a job in modeling or acting, it's really considered inappropriate in many businesses, and it could result in them automatically rejecting your application because it looks like you're trying to get hired based on your appearance, right? Be careful of things like bold, fancy colors. It may end up photocopied and none of that'll show. By the same token, be cautious of fancy papers. Generally, when people are using some sort of fancy paper, it's because they don't trust their training or their own experience. Again, we've talked about this as we're going along, but I would not put skills or interests on a resume unless they tied into the work I was trying to get. So if I was trying to get work at a sports equipment store, then I would put that I've got interest in hockey, baseball, and rollerblading because it's useful. But I wouldn't put that if my interests were like Lego sets and watercolor because it's got no relationship to the job. Okay, so you can use Google Docs to create a resume. There's a variety of templates. They're nice, clean templates that can work. And we talked about yesterday, if you are a student, you have access to Google Docs and all the apps. Um, However, you can do your resume in whatever word processing program you're comfortable with. Microsoft Word is fine. If you've got a Mac computer, whatever Word program Mac has is fine too. Um, the nice thing about using the Google Docs samples, though, is it can help you set up the formatting if you're not comfortable playing around with the formatting. That's the one big thing. And so we've talked about this yesterday, but just in case you log into your Google account, if you go over to it, normally there's a little square. It's because I'm in a slide, so it doesn't show it. And then you'd click on one of those dots. What would come up is all the different apps that Google has. The blue one with the lines called Docs is the one you would click on. And then it would come up. You'd see all your new documents. And then you can pick one of the resumes. I believe there's more than one. Um, I did find it a little bit fiddly when I wanted to add some sections. So what I did was I ended up doing what I did yesterday, where I saved all the information and I dumped it into a new document. So let me show you what I did just because in case you want to use this. Okay, so here is my information. And because they done some of the formatting, it was kind of tricky. So I just kind of went through and saved everything, copied it. Then I opened a brand new file. New. Oh, document. There we go. And I dumped everything in. And somehow this made it easier. I'm not sure what they had on it, but then I could go around and play with it. So you'd put your name, um, you put your skills, your experience. You'd have to rename some things. They don't necessarily match up. For example, we don't have awards. You might put interests there. You would just go over backspace and write the word that you want instead. That's fine. It's really kind of easy to do. See, was there another? See, there's other possibilities. Oh, okay. So there's this one. There's also this one. This is the spearmint one. This is kind of a little bit more like what we were doing. Let me see if I can, you can change the color if you don't like the green, which I'm not crazy about myself. You could change it to black. Oop, didn't grab the other part. Oh, I don't like that. Hang on a second. All right, I'm just going to leave it. It looks silly, but I'm going to leave it. I think you can get rid of the green line or, hmm, yeah, you can. Okay, so if you don't like the line there, you can get rid of it. And again, same thing. They've got different categories. You would just change it to the categories that you want. Okay. The other thing you can do if you want it to look exactly the same, like if I needed to add one more category for like references, I could just go on here. Oh, sorry, hang on a second. Copy it, go down to where I need it, paste it, and then if I want to say like references available, okay, so it's easy to add sections when you do it this way. So this is one really easy way to do it in Google Docs if you're comfortable using Google Docs. All right, let's take a look at what else we've got. Yeah, we're doing okay for time. Yep, did that. Okay, so normal margins are fine. Sometimes a slightly wide margin can look really good too. I would generally avoid doing anything too narrow unless you're using a resume template. It's already got them set up there because if somebody goes to photocopy it and it's tilted slightly, which happens, it might cut off some of your information. So I would stick to normal or wide. Um, Keep in mind that you can also align your text differently. It can be centered, or you could align it with your left-hand margin. Don't align it to the right-hand margin. Visually, that looks weird because English is written from left to right. So if I take, again, you just select the text, and up here, this is aligning it to the left. I can easily align it to the middle. I could, if I wanted to be, could do that. This part is called justified. It's not used very often these days. I wouldn't bother. Hang on, did I use? Yeah, it didn't work. This puts it at the top. This puts it in the middle, and then this puts it down near the bottom. There are times when that might be useful. Okay. I'm just kind of running through this because I don't know if everybody really knows how to use these word programs. To make your subheading stand out, you can do different things. You can use bold, which hang on, the B stands for bold. You can use italics. The I stands for italics. Italics will make it slant. You can make it a slightly bigger font. You can just kind of choose it, go up here and click on this and it'll make it bigger. You can write it in all capitals. That's easy to do. You can try a slightly different font. I wouldn't make it look too different, but it's easy enough to go up here and then play around with fonts a little bit and see what you like. So here's one that would be completely inappropriate because it looks like a Halloween one. But you see here, what does the Alada look like? That might work. It just makes it stand out a little tiny bit. Again, you don't want it to look too weird though. You can also underline the subheadings, or you can do several of those. I wanted to show you a different program. I've used this program myself to do resumes, and I find it really, really useful. It's Canva. It has a free subscription and a paid subscription. But I've used it for free all the time and find it really useful. Okay, so you go up here and create a blank resume. Sorry, I'm in my work one. I can't kind of help that. It's just kind of what's going to come up. And then I could pick a resume. Some of these actually are like cover letters. Hang on, because I did cover letters yesterday. Hang on. Resume. Okay. So here is a sample resume. This is nice just because the format sets it up so you can get all your information on one page. This is really great if you've got a lot of work information that you want to put. And same thing, you just kind of go in and type over what you want, right? And that's fine. You can change the fonts in this one if you didn't like a font. The only problem is sometimes different fonts are bigger or smaller. So let's just kind of see what that one. Okay, that one looked okay. Sometimes you make it one that looks really small or really big and it'll throw off all your formatting. So you have to be kind of careful with that. Let me see. This is a little more typical. And again, they've got the word key competencies. You would just put the word skills there. Instead of extracurricular activities, you put interests. You can just add little sections here. Again, if you are really doing a resume, I really strongly advise you. This site is marvelous. This is a nice one. Look, it's got your experience, your education, your skills. This is the spot where you've got your objective. They haven't written the word objective, but you would. That looks really nice. So I just really encourage you to take a look at this because it's just such a useful site and it looks so sharp. When you're done, I think you'll be really happy with the results. Okay, let me see what else we've got. Okay, so here's another one. I don't myself like the pink. I think it's too girly. But if I was applying to, say, a company that was like pro women, maybe all women, then maybe I would feel comfortable using it. So here, instead of professional summary, I would put our objective. Here you've got your work history, and you can see 2020, 2019, 2017. You want to go backwards, basically. Skills, awesome. Education, I wouldn't worry about portfolio. We would have, what else do we need here? Interests and, oh, what's the other one you need? Oh, references. Okay. And again, I'm not sure if I got this from Canva, if I just pulled it off the net, but this is just another example of how to set it up. I like this one. In terms of how it's set up, I think it's really clear and really easy to read. This is another one. I'm not crazy about the lines, but I think it is pretty easy to read and pretty easy to set up. Um, yeah, this one looks like it's a Word, Microsoft Word one. And then, okay. This is the thing I've been seeing all the time. The skills and the languages, and however many dark boxes shows how good you think you are at it. I feel like it's a bit questionable myself. I wouldn't feel comfortable using it, but if you know that other people in your field use that, then I would go ahead and do that. I do like that they've got a spot for what kind of other languages you know. There are some jobs, again, where you have to know French, or it would be really helpful to know another First Nations language. I know some banks like will advertise, hey, we have people here who can speak Spanish, Italian, French, whatever, so that people can still get services regardless. Okay, I am done a little bit quicker than I thought. Um, are there any questions? Because if not, I'm just going to kind of go back and show you the Canva thing. No questions? Okay. So hang on a second. There we go. Then, like I said, the nice thing about this, you can change everything. If I want, I don't know what the magic right part is, but if I go here, I could put, oop, Jill Percy. I don't like that block lettering. I think it just looks a little bit ugly myself. I don't know. I could make it, I don't want to make it look too fancy because I still want it to be readable. Um, this is the kind of thing I'm sort of a goofball about this kind of thing. Oh, that's still even more blocky. This is a little bit thin. Let me see. I could go, no, that looks ugly. Doesn't make any sense. Copper plate, meh, that's a little softer. I like that too. Um, if you see a little crown next to it, it means you have to pay for it. So don't use those. Let me see. Hmm. Oh yeah, I kind of like that. Okay, so if you were trying to set up in resume, I'm going to go back to resume docs thing. If you were trying to set up all by yourself, let's say you didn't like that particular format, you started a whole new thing. You would just want to make use of your tabs where you can tab over or margins. Okay. So you put your information, Jill, oh, I think I still have caps lock on, sorry. Jill Percy, uh, whatever. 1234 Front Street, Cat Lake, Ontario, POV 1 POV 1JO. Now, when I'm playing with that, if I don't like it, I can just move it over to the center. Okay. I would also play around with how big it gets. I'd want my name to be really strong because I want it to really stand out. I would also probably make it a lot bigger. So it really stands out. I don't like Arial. It's a bit thin. Calibre is really nice. Let me see if we've got it. Oh, they don't have Calibre. Really? It's such a classic one. Georgia is also really nice. Times New Roman is a kind of a classic one you could use. What else? Don't use Roboto. Here, I'll do Times New Roman so you can see it. That's kind of one. Also, I would use a 12 font. I wouldn't use 11. It's hard for people to see. Um, Play around with it. Look at what you see. And then I would go back to the side and do my objective. And to get, oops, I don't want this to be capitals. To get a job in the teaching field in Sioux Lookout. I don't know if it's me. It's looking very light. I'm just going to check and make sure. Is it on the black? Why does it look so light to me? Yeah, it's dark. Okay, so I would play around with this. I would make some of these things a little bit bigger just to make them stand out. Maybe bold it. I don't think I can show you, but I don't think I want to make it look on its side. No, I don't like that. I could underline it, but I think it doesn't look quite right for some reason. Okay. I wouldn't get fancy with colors, different colors of text. Because again, if somebody photocopies it and hands it to the hiring manager, all your pretty colors are not going to stand out. This might even be significantly bigger. Right now, I've got it much. There we go. You can also play with the margins. Where is margins here? Sorry, I'm not as familiar with using Google Docs, which is why I didn't suggest it first off. Oh, down here, page setup. Okay. So at the top, I'm going to give it a 0.5 margin and leave the rest be. Okay, so that moved it up a little bit. It gives me a little bit more room. Okay. If you have to pad your resume, you might do like a 14 font or give yourself slightly wider margins so it fills up more spots. When you're getting to work experience, I want to point this out because somebody did it kind of funny the other day. Sorry, it's not hanging on to my stuff. Oh, I'm gonna have to go soon. I would put your dates right here. So like 2024 and then your previous date. Like, so if I started the job in 2023, I would put the 2024 first. I would give my job title. Let's see. Wassa high school teacher. Then underneath it, I would put my skills lined up. I would not line it up there. I would put it here. Created, oh, but not in caps. Created presentations. Let's see. Presented courses on radio. And then I would kind of go over here, click on it, and use the bullets. Okay. If I wanted it, which I do, I want it closer to that, but I still want it lined up. I would really like it to be lined up underneath the WASA teacher thing. What I can do is select this and then increase my indent until I have it over. Okay. So if you want to set up all the formatting yourself because you've got an idea of how you want things to look, just pick the blank form and go ahead and do it that way. Okay. That's fine. I just was kind of showing you the formatting because some people hate doing all the formatting. Um, that is it. Tomorrow we will look at assignment 38. Any questions before I go? All right. Thank you so much for showing up, and we will talk tomorrow.